What is up, everyone? Super excited today. We're going to talk about something that a lot of people have. They have these little crystal pendants and everybody buys them, online. But have you ever heard of Orgonite? We're going to welcome today Isaac Layzell. He's a leading authority on this unique practice. He's a craft artist with these, and he's going to unravel the fascinating history of Orgone Energy. He's going to explain its potential impact on our lives. We're going to find out a man by the name of Wilhelm Reich that the government imprisoned and burned all his work because of Orgone. We're going to see how it heals the body. So this is going to be a really interesting show, and I'm super excited to have you on, Isaac. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Jason. It's a pleasure to be on. I really look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I want to start off with your shop. I know behind you, you've got a lot of pieces that are super beautiful. What do you make, without getting into the origin? We'll get into the origins of Orgonite, but what do you make specifically, and what does your shop do?
So I specifically make custom Orgonite pieces, which Orgonite is a mixture of resin and steel, or my specific mixtures are always have copper and steel inside of them. And then I have a quartz crystal as well, which those three mixtures together, you have the organic compound of the of the resin, and then you have the inorganic compound of the metal, and the quartz crystal is piezoelectric, which means there's a if you squeeze a quartz, or in this process of curing epoxy, when it cures, it shrinks together, and so it puts pressure on the quartz crystal, and that activates the electrical properties within the crystal itself, which is amplified into the whole entire piece. And that electricity is also messing with the magnetism of the copper and the steel. So the copper and the steel will create, and the piezoelectricity of the quartz will create an electromagnetic, basically like aura that is emanating out of the Orgonite itself, which is creating it pulls in what's known as DOR, or Wilhelm Reich, as you talked about, had this theory of DOR, which is deadly Orgone energy. And you have DOR and then positive Orgone energy, which is POR. And so this negative Orgone energy is present in all living things. Every living thing will have positive and negative energy running inside of it. And this Orgone device is able to basically suck out and pull that negative Orgone energy. But I like to say you can even get rid of negative energy by yourself through meditation and through different alchemical practices. But basically, I equivalate Orgonite as like giving it a little bit of NOS or some turbo and just forcing it out of there like an engine. Yeah, so, yeah.
So, and what is your website so people can go and look at what you create?
My website is www.Orgon, as the state. I live in Oregon, so it's OREGON -ITE.com.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. And so I encourage everybody to go that. We'll have it in the show notes too. And if somebody wants a special piece or something that, I know you have a shop and stuff like that, but I've seen some of the work you do. Do you have people, do they ask you for like custom stuff or certain?
Yeah. So I originally started out my business, selling, I make like Orgonite infused furniture. I made the first ever coffee table with an Orgonite river inside of it. Oh, and, so you can order that as well. I have a bunch of material actually that I can make coffee tables or custom cutting boards that are infused with Orgone energy, and I'll do like I can do custom engravings or whatever you want. I have there's a bunch of pictures on my Instagram as well. That's the best place to find all of my pictures. That's Orgon.ite if you want to go look at that.
Orgon.ite Instagram. So I encourage everybody to follow you on that. Let's step into kind of the origins, the history. It's because it has an esoteric background. Mm-hmm. When did you first start to see in history Orgonite? When was the first glimpse for you when you began to do research and study on this that you saw it?
So I grew up in a Christian, like very, I went to church every single Sunday, and I went to youth group every single Wednesday. I taught my Sunday school the second I became like old enough to be able to teach people. And so I was absorbing all this spiritual knowledge from a very mainstream Christian standpoint. But my church believed in the fact that like you could heal with in the name of the Holy Spirit, in the name of Jesus Christ, you can heal, like people can be healed and you can see miracles happen. And essentially the powers of the disciples are still inside of you if you are a true disciple of Jesus Christ. And based off of that belief, going through church every single Sunday, I saw amazing things happen on a pretty normal basis. And it was like something I couldn't talk to my normal friends about. I'm like, yeah, Jesus healed this dude's tongue or something like that. I saw it right in front of me. But that started, and then when I got into like my teenage years, I started doing research into conspiracy theories, and I learned about the Illuminati and all of the crazy negative things that are the entities or whatever you call it, that's controlling the world on a dark level. And I had a really negative perspective on life. During the COVID times, I was a hardcore info warrior. I thought the world was going to end. I'm Agenda 2030. I thought, oh no, we're going to be eating bugs and we're going to love it and everyone's going to be brainwashed. And then
I've listened to that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I started listening to the likes of like Sam Tripoli, and he had some guy, and he kept saying that spirituality and conspiracy are intertwined. And I was like, okay, I have this deeply religious background, but how does that relate to the conspiracy stuff? It doesn't seem to be in the same realm. But then I realized there's a much wider spiritual outlook that a lot of people have that I was completely sheltered from my whole entire life. And I learned about this family called the Bledsoes. There's this man named Chris Bledsoe who lives in North Carolina, and he's been seeing angels and orbs of light, and he's taken thousands of photographs. You can look it up on his Instagram. Thousands and thousands of videos, and there's been messages that these angels, beings of light, have been communicating to him. And one of the messages was that there's going to be an awakening within the population, within humanity in the next few years. We are leaving the age of Pisces and entering the age of Aquarius, and there's going to be an energetic shift within the human population. And I learned about a lot of this stuff, and there's going to be a new knowledge. The new knowledge, that word kept being thrown around, and I was like, what is that? And so I started listening to, Chris has a few sons, but one of his sons is Ryan, and he has a podcast called Bledsoe Said So. And I started listening the crap out of all of it. And on the 4th episode, he's like, so there are members of the secret spy program who came and visited us, and they taught us about Orgone Energy. And I was like, okay, that's super interesting. What is Orgone Energy? I've never heard of it before. And I do listen to some podcasts, and talks about Wilhelm Reich, and I got a really borderline, very surface level view of it. And I was like, okay, this has some merit. Like this guy got all of his books got burned. He was killed, like thrown in prison, and all of this stuff matches with a lot of Tesla stuff. And if you look at Orgone Energy and Orgonite, it really pertains to the energy, frequency, and vibration mathematics and scientific theory. So the energy is the electricity that's apparent inside of the orgone, and the frequency is the color or the different types of things that are inside of it. The stones I'll put specific stones to help with certain chakra regions. And then the vibration is the structure, the size, or the shape that it is. So this right here, I just got this out of the mold today. I call it the teardrop. It is a pentagonal pyramid that's facing upwards that is blue. This is going to resonate very deeply with the throat chakra. So if you have any specific issues in your throat chakra, if you have any hard time speaking up for yourself, or if you don't feel heard or something like this, or if you need a good cry, something like this is going to be really helpful to help restore these energies emotionally. And so you can specifically target certain emotional issues within yourself by changing and like finding the right types of frequencies and vibrations.
Later, not now, but we're going to get into cancer and Wilhelm Reich with cancer and stuff. So if you
first of all, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor.
Yes, none of us are here. Yeah.
And specifically for the fact that Wilhelm Reich was thrown in prison, and Don Croft, who's the inventor of Orgonite, the actual Orgonite like mixture with the epoxy, he had a lot of amazing work he'd done. He started the gifting movement, and the gifting movement is essentially making a boatload of Orgone tower busters, which are just little pucks. You can make them in giant quantities, and people will go out and gift them to very important places in nature and important places. Maybe Don Croft went to this lake that he had a picture that there's a nuclear missile or a missile that was coming out of the bottom of the lake, which means there's an Air Force base or some sort of base underneath it, military. And he's just gifted a bunch of Orgonite and put it inside of the underneath the water right there in the base, and had a bunch of different gifting movements all around the globe. And
that's so awesome.
well, yeah.
So, so you began to listen to these podcasts, and I've heard of a lot of them. I've heard of the story of the Bledsoes and stuff like that. I think there's a really concrete podcast or something. I think had him on there.
Danny Jones just had him.
Yeah, he had him, and I think his son on there.
Yeah.
So you start listening to those. Then Orgonite got introduced to you. What was the next step for you, like in your evolution of learning? What was right after that?
So after I started learning about Orgone Energy, I started getting into free energy. I started getting into Nikola Tesla. I started going deep down the rabbit hole. I started realizing that there are thousands of different types of suppressed technologies that everybody spent, like there are thousands of people who spent their whole entire lives inventing and researching different things that are completely different from the other person who's doing it, but they're just having the same concepts of energy, frequency, vibration. There's thousands of ways you can utilize that. And there are so many different inventions, and none of them are public. I have a machine called an AquaCure that is has a technology, or it's just a gas called Brown's gas, and it's just an electrolyzed hydrogen that's 30% more bioavailable to the body that you can breathe. So if you breathe this Brown's gas, or if you bubble it into some water and drink it, it's very good for your health on a hydrogen level. Your body is made of hydrogen, and it's completely suppressed. But also, this Brown's gas can power a vehicle. And every single vehicle could be powered by water if we were to actually put the research and development into it. But that's something that nobody speaks about, nobody talks about. And there are millions of other things just like that. And I just started researching all of them. But Orgonite kept striking out to me. It's like, it's such a simple thing. Honestly, I could teach you how to make Orgonite right now and give you the things to buy, spend $25, and you could go have 100 people listen to this and gift it all around their personal areas and create a huge positive effect. Like, it's so cheap, it's so simple, but it has such a positive effect on the environment. Plant growth will like triple, and every plant that's around an Orgonite piece will be way healthier. And even you can structure your water. I'll always charge my water with it. If you were to throw a piece of Orgonite inside of a freezer, and if you were to put like a piece of water on, or a cup of water on top of it, you can see the scalar energies that are freezing inside. And there's a crazy like vortex spirals that are in the freezing of the water.
That's crazy. That's so awesome. So you begin to study it. You're going deep into it. It keeps popping up. And then what caused you to kind of go from, okay, I'm going to do this, to I'm going to be an artist and create Orgonite pieces?
Yeah. So my dad had a custom furniture business. We made conference tables and giant, like live edge tables. We milled our own logs locally for here in Oregon, and we had the whole entire process. And I was brought up in that business, and it was always completely custom. You spend hours and weeks on a single piece, and you make it totally personal to exactly what the person wants. And it was a very successful business. We have the last piece we did right before the business got shut down is we built a 9-foot round epoxy river table. That's just a round piece that has like 40 gallons of epoxy inside of it in the San Francisco airport. And we have a piece we have a conference table in the LA Lakers, and a bunch of places. And so I was learning how to work with resin and epoxy through that. And I learned about Orgonite, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I just get some steel and some quartz, which is not very hard, everybody can go get some steel and quartz, I can make my own Orgonite right here. And I made a couple pieces. And I was like, wow, I can start a business out of this. And so I started making custom charcuterie boards, and I made a makeup table for my wife that's like a giant river table full of Orgonite. And there's really beautiful stuff you can do with it. And then I started realizing that the pyramid structures are really important vibrationally, and I did a lot of deep research into that. And I've got
this is really, really cool, Isaac, because a lot of people, they don't even realize it. They'll have these little pieces. I have a little one here. It's like a little pyramid, with like flakes, like flakes on the bottom or whatever. A lot of people buy these on, wherever. And and I have a big Orgone pyramid and a black one right over there. That we had bought from an artist. But
Nice.
why is it so important to have the shape of a pyramid?
So it's the vibratory structure gets much more enhanced to the human consciousness and the consciousness of all life when it's in the shape of a pyramid. If you go off energetic structures of your body on an energetic level is in the shape of a pyramid. So this pyramid right here is a scale model of the Pyramid of Giza. If you're going and buying Orgonite, I will say always make sure your Orgonite is stuffed to the brim full of metals, because if it's not, it's emitting more negative DOR than it's emitting positive energy. So I am I don't like to say I'm strict, but I started out my business and I was like, oh, anything that is in the shape of a pyramid and has a tiny bit of metal is able to be Orgonite. And then I wasn't feeling the best from it, and I was like not super happy with it. And then I did more and more research, and I was like, oh my, I'm possibly making more harm than good in my pieces. And I completely refined my process. I started stuffing my pieces full of metal and make sure I have a good sized quartz in there. And because I always want to be having the best possible output to my customers. I want to be helping and first do no harm in everything that I do. But this specific structure is the pyramid of the heart chakra. The Giza pyramid itself is actually a macrocosmic representation of the heart chakra, and then it's also a fractalized representation of the whole entire 7 chakras in the body. And so the Pyramid of Giza itself, the chambers in the pyramid are exactly aligned to where the chakras in the human body would be. And if you were to put the body on like a template and stuff and look at it, it's the same. And so I started looking into all of these different types of pyramids and why are they up here? And why is this one so small? Or not small, but it's why the slope angles are all different. So one is like, and so this one is called a Nubian pyramid. This is the pyramid of the pineal gland. And I started noticing this pyramid is the pyramid of the heart chakra. And when you start out, your body on an energetic level is in the shape of a Merkaba. You are an as above, so below being. You are equally light as in spirit as you are matter. And this is represented in 2 pyramids that are stacked in each other. One is facing downwards and one is facing upwards. And the top of the pyramid facing downwards is right about at your throat chakra or around your heart chakra. And it's going downwards. And the pyramid facing upwards also starts right beneath your heart chakra at your solar plexus chakra and goes upwards. And so the heart center, the power is in the center of the heart right there. But if the pyramid starts down here, so if you have the slope angle that is slightly higher, this is the heart chakra pyramid. And then if you to have the pineal gland pyramid, it's way up here and it's much more pointy. And so the vibratory structure will match what you can imagine it would look like.
So whenever you design a piece and you're looking at, people are talking to you about different chakras and stuff like that, or maybe needs that they have in their life, or some problem that they're facing, physically, whatever it may be. Do you go to like a pyramid shape, or like what, or how do you decide what pyramid to use?
Yeah, so based off of the type of the pyramid and the color, so if people, I'll use a real life example for this. I won't use a name, but there was a buddy of mine who, not buddy of mine, he found me through podcast land and whatever, and messaged me and said, "Hey, could you build me a pyramid? I want this and this." And I built him a really nice dark green heart chakra pyramid, and I sent it to him, and he loved it. And I get a message from him a few weeks later, and he's like, "Dude, I just had a nasty breakup the last year, and my girlfriend had left her stuff at my house and nothing, and she wasn't messaging me to come get it at all. And it's been like a year and it's been hard to move on from it." And then he's like, "A week after I got the pyramid from you, I got a message from her and she wanted to pick all the stuff up and she resolved everything. And it was so much better for me. And it was like healing my heart." And literally the energies of the heart chakra were increased. So he was allowed to receive and give love again. And then it was forced to happen in the reality that would get cleared up, because that's what the energetic frequency is in your body. Therefore, the reality has to match it.
I love that. That's a beautiful story. And so this just kind of gives you, whether like crystals, people kind of do the same thing with, they'll kind of do the same thing with crystals. Yeah. What is the difference between having, a quartz crystal sitting next to you and having Orgone pyramid sitting next to you?
Yeah. I love quartz and crystals, all crystals. I actually first got into crystals, and I was really interested in the different effects of, like, if you like an amethyst versus a malachite, or there's a million bajillions of different types of stones, and they literally will make you help you feel something. I actually about a week ago, I put a piece of black tourmaline underneath my pillow and I went to sleep just because I felt like it. And I had the most restful sleep I've had in a long time. And I was like, holy crap, that's great. And I started putting a super powerful pyramid of mine that I had made for myself underneath my bed. And since then, it's been like sleeping has been way nicer. And I'm not going to say that I'm not a doctor once again, but it's just personal anecdotal, not evidence, but things that have happened. And it's like, these are cool things. If it's a coincidence, it's just a coincidence. But I'm of the belief that nothing in the universe is a coincidence. So
right, 100%. So do you feel like when you look at Orgone Energy in and of itself, and we'll kind of get into that, and because we talked about the materials that you make and all that stuff, why is Orgone Energy so important?
So Orgone Energy is made up of everything. The universe is made up of Orgone Energy. Orgone Energy is also called a bunch of different things. So Orgone Energy is also known as scalar energy, or chi, or prana, or the ether, or light. Light is also Orgone Energy. You have also just energy itself. Electricity is Orgone Energy. People don't understand what electricity truly is. It's literally, you're pulling energy from the ether using copper, which is a natural element of the earth, which has its own consciousness and its own light inside of it. Therefore, it's able to produce its own electricity. I have a piece called a Rodin coil that I'll put inside my pyramids. And it's based off of this mathematics that this guy named Marco Rodin pioneered in the last 20 years, but nothing happened with his research, really. He was commended by like big guys in Microsoft and stuff, and then they just flattened all of his work. But the mathematics of this is the qualitative mathematics of the 369 hypothesis, and it'll you take the multiplication table, and every number on the multiplication table you add it to. So let's say 9 times 9 is 81. And you say 8 plus 1 is 9, and then that's what the value is of that. When you take the qualitative numbers of every single mathematic, it rolls down to a code, and there's a code that you can follow. And if you incorporate this code into a coil, you can produce electricity.
That's interesting.
And it's the numbers of it, the code, it's always in the 3s and the 6s and the 9s in the multiplication chart. It's always 369, 369, 369.
Tesla was into this, yeah.
Yes. And that specific coil that the 3, the 6, and the 9 would be in the coil itself is the one that is actually electrically active.
So this is the free energy concept.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and Tesla talked about this with the coils and the 3s. Do you feel when you put this coil in your work, is it giving, what is it? Is it amplifying? Is it giving off energy?
So there are two coils. So one of the pyramid I just put under my bed has a Rodin coil inside of it. And so there are two wires that are sticking out of the bottom of the pyramid, and you can hook these up to frequency generators, and you can amplify the Orgone energy electrically with specific frequencies. I will recommend using the solfeggio tones. That's a very important frequency. You should just listen to it in general. After this podcast is done, go spend some time listening to some solfeggio tones for an hour and just soak all this up. I recommend everybody do that. But you can put these tones inside of the pyramid on a frequency level, and it'll electrically amplify the whole pyramid itself. And that's a really cool thing. And I have a bunch of coils that I can put in pyramids. Usually they have to be medium or large sizes because the coils are a pretty good size itself. But yeah.
So now when you're talking about frequency, because this is really interesting, and a lot of people don't understand this, that we are frequency. What is your spiritual view of and what you've seen in spiritual traditions, esoteric teachings when it comes to frequency?
So ancient cultures used to all be connected. You have the ancient advanced civilizations that are apparent all across the globe, and people throw around a bunch of different words: Tartaria, Atlantis, specifically Atlantis. People say the city of Atlantis, the lost city of Atlantis. Bull fucking shit. It is the lost era of Atlantis. The Atlantean culture was a worldwide culture of spiritual knowledge that everybody was learning from each other, incorporating everything. Everybody knew that they had a piece of the puzzle and they wanted to put the whole puzzle together. And so every single culture learned this frequency concept, and they built their buildings based off of frequency technology. They structured the vibratory. There used to be giant tuning forks inside of the Pyramid of Giza that were able to be struck, and there's a bunch of copper inside. The Pyramid of Giza is a literal giant orgone pyramid that the ancients made using, and they would strike the frequency just like this frequency generator, and they'd have the electrical Orgone energy being transmitted into the whole entire Giza region. And the ancients, so that's not the only structure. Like, there's a structure in Malta there are purportedly giants roaming underneath and have been spotted, but that's besides the point. But there are certain structures inside of this place in Malta that are resonated at 111 hertz. And the exact frequency of 111 hertz unlocks a certain thing in the brain, just like certain other frequencies where our bodies will resonate at this frequency, and it's almost like it'll clear up or unblock something or kind of supercharge you on a frequency level. And it's not something that conventional science is able to explain. It's the stuff that you were taught in chemistry or whatever in high school. It's not going to work on that level because it's been shadowed or occulted for a long time, and there's people that they just don't understand it, but people are starting to.
Do you feel like so when you look at whether it's the pyramids, and because I know in Mexico that he said there's pyramids underneath those, you know, you think they were big orgone generators?
Yeah, well, different pyramids serve different purposes. So every single pyramid, if it's built the proper way, it's going to be an orgone generator. A lot of things actually are orgone generators. A lot of things in our world are DOR generators that we just are unaware of. But certain pyramids, like I know there's 3 different pyramids in the Giza Strip. The Giza pyramid, in my opinion, was like a free energy amplifier and battery that was able to transmit free energy into the whole entire environment around it. And then there's 2 more pyramids. I know one of them was producing an element called monoatomic gold, which is able to raise consciousness. And I put monoatomic gold inside of all my pyramids because it's a superconductor electrically. So all of the epoxy inside of my pyramids, every single one that you buy has monoatomic gold inside of it and is able to electrically amplify all the epoxy. That's not something that a lot of people do.
Yeah, I could imagine, because a lot of these pyramids that you can buy or people have, the one I have sitting here, you know, this little one, I think was done off of, you know, like eBay or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, you know, they're just doing it, you know, as like a little spiritual gimmick.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's
all necklaces, all of that.
A lot of them can be good. But I look on Amazon, I type in Orgonite. There is not a single true Orgonite device that I've found. I go on Etsy. I don't see it on the top couple pages. Maybe a pendant has enough metal to be considered Orgonite, but a lot of the stones even are fake. And I just said earlier, I was brought up on the conspiracy mindset. I am of the opinion that the powers that be, anything you're able to just look up easily on your phone and find, is probably controlled opposition in one way or another. And yeah, that's true. I think that if you were to Google and look up on Amazon Orgonite, they're not going to sell you the stuff that I'm talking about. They're not going to actually give you the stuff that's going to heal you. They don't do that at all. The pharmaceutical industry and every industry is built off of keeping you sick and keeping you their slaves.
100%. Yeah.
This frees you of the slavery. This frees the whole world. This frees Gaia or the mother or the whole entire, all of our spirits of the slavery. It kind of unlocks something inside of us.
Yeah, I want to touch base and kind of get into a little bit of Wilhelm Reich, because he's kind of the one, like if anybody had a figure that people go to, he's kind of the one. Can you tell me the history of him and a little bit about his life?
Yeah. I love Wilhelm Reich. Yes. Okay. I absolutely love him. So, we're going to go from his early childhood because this is a story you really want to hear. And there's twists and turns, and it's the most batshit crazy story ever. And, starting off, Wilhelm Reich is born. He is brought up in his young childhood, and he lives with his mom and his dad and his brother in a house, locked in a house.
Like 1800s, right?
Late 1800s. And they are in Austria, and he's Austrian, and he doesn't go to school. They bring a private tutor in, and they get tutored every day. And eventually, when Reich is, man, I think it's early, maybe pre-teens, he finds his mom and the tutor doing it and having an affair. And Wilhelm Reich is not happy, and he feels like he has to go confront his dad, or confront his mom, but he goes and tells the dad about it. And then the dad goes and confronts the mom, and it's a really negative situation in the house. They stay in there for some reason. They stay married. Whatever happens. But eventually, guilt-stricken with grief, his mom commits suicide. His mom kills herself due to all of it. And then the father, now guilt-stricken with his own grief about how he handled the situation, kills himself. And so Wilhelm Reich in his childhood is brought up on the fact that he caused both of his parents' suicides based off of the fact that Wilhelm Reich's mother was not sexually happy with his father. And this whole entire situation goes down, and he starts getting into psychology. He goes and studies under Sigmund Freud for a long time, and he starts developing this process called orgonomy. And this process called orgonomy is very similar to the emotional stuff I was telling you about before. He would have people sit down on they'd sit down and talk to him about their issues, and he'd notice when people started getting deep into certain traumas, there'd be physical reactions within their body. They literally tense up in certain places. And he realized that if he was able to physically massage or work the area out as they're going through this therapeutic process, he's able to free up this what he called armor, or I call them just energy blockages that's inside all of us. But everybody has different things. Everyone's unique. But he'd go through and he started developing this map and realizing that every single emotion is physically stored inside of the body. And until you bring awareness to it, it's sucking out your energy. And he started developing, that's what DOR is. They're literal black holes that energy is being sucked into all the time. Your body is a universe, and there are you have stars in your body, and you also have black holes that are sucking energy out of your body. And you can go and basically Orgonite is like a black hole purifier, and it's like it'll basically transmute the energy of the black hole, and it'll say you're returning back to the star, and all the energy is going to be returned to the source. And from the point now on in the future, you're living with a higher energetic capacity, and you're not dealing with that blockage or that armor that's there. So he started originally working it out by like massaging, and he had a lot of shit about that. He started he was kicked out of the Sigmund Freud's college or whatever he was studying under, and he went over to
he was kind of
Germany.
A form of tantric.
It's
orgasm, kind of.
So
he was with that sexual trauma he experienced. And his parents obviously experienced. That was kind of a big part of what he was.
Exactly. That's one of the things I like to press in people. My personal background, I didn't learn about this story of Wilhelm Reich until a few months ago. And I had been building Orgonite for a while, and then I got super deep into like, holy crap, there's a lot of trauma and a lot of healing behind a lot of this stuff. And I think a lot of the trauma he went through made him want to help people not go through that themselves. And so he started sexual healing courses in Germany, and he was like, okay, I'm going to teach all of you factory workers.
Right? Like
it was right before the war. So he was an Austrian Jew, and he was in Germany in the early 1930s helping the fascist movement. There's also a counter-fascist movement in Germany before Hitler took over everything. And he was in the factories, and he was helping out all the workers, and he was saying, hey, I'm going to teach you safe sex. I'm going to teach you the fact that I'm going to give you contraceptives, and I'm going to teach you can have a loving life with your partner and also be working. And it helped them. And people started they started having healthy sex lives, and they started enjoying having families, and then they started quitting the factories and saying, I want to build a family and start a family and stuff. And they quit the factories, and then the Germans kicked him out of Germany, and they burned all of his material and sent him to the United States, which I call this a reverse Project Paperclip, where the Germans gave Wilhelm Reich to the CIA. And Wilhelm Reich started doing research on all of this emotional and sexual healing stuff, and starting to realize, hey, what is the problems with certain things? After enough time, Wilhelm Reich realized the CIA is not going to do good things with this research. And he tried to sabotage it, and then he left. But he was too far in his research, and the CIA stole that knowledge, and they made a project called the Montauk Project based out of it. And if anybody else doesn't know what that is, it is the loose version of what the movie Stranger Things was based off of. And if you know anything or have done any research into psychic phenomena, you know that there's always a catalyst of trauma that happens before you activate certain psychic abilities.
Yes,
Chris Bledsoe himself, he's has a bunch of psychic activity with these beings in orbs of life. He's had like 6 near-death experiences. He's been shot a bunch of times. Like, he's been through the ringer his whole entire life. And what the CIA would do is I'm very sorry for this. I hate saying it. I hate having to be the bearer of this news. But the CIA took his research, took children, sodomized them, and activated psychic abilities within them, and started building this secret spy program. And 60, 70 years later, the same people, or the generations later, who are talking in the secret spy program are telling Ryan Bledsoe about Orgone Energy, which they stole Wilhelm Reich's research. Wilhelm Reich had talked nothing about causing trauma in people. They perverted it and they flipped it. Wilhelm Reich's research is about healing and realizing that there are these traumatic issues within yourself that you have to work through, and if you work through them, you can grow and you can heal physically. And he started developing this Orgone Energy and the Orgone accumulators and a bunch of devices that would basically supercharge it. He didn't have to start touching his...
Isaac, I want to pause here because I want people to understand this, because they may have heard what you said and then be like, oh my God, that's so horrific. They wouldn't do that. You have to realize stuff is coming out that the CIA did here in the United States. We took a generation of people and a race of people, and this is known. This is out there. This is not a conspiracy theory. And we sterilized them. We told them they were getting special medicines, and we sterilized people. It's proven in San Francisco, with starting the hippie movement, the CIA started all that. And then in turn with the LSD and all that, they created, I forgot the name of the operation, but this is all out there, declassified. They were taking people, having men have sex with prostitutes in these whorehouses, and then giving them, without even them their knowledge, giving them LSD. So yeah, going against people's free will is what negative entities do. And anytime you have a huge industrial complex or bureaucracy or big governments, this is what they're going to do. That does not surprise me in the least bit. With things that are not a conspiracy theory, that have been declassified and put out there, that we know as fact, these are the things that happen. Whoop, your mic's cut off.
Thank you. I said, yeah, it's really unfortunate. And the fact is that we, the people, we're the 99%. And we, the people, are also enabling all of them to let them do this. Mm-hmm. There's a guy named Mark Passio. He's an amazing person. Everyone go look up also Streetwise Spirituality. It's an 8-hour conference. And he talks about, he used to be, he was sucked into the satanic movement. He used to be Catholic, and then he had a pretty rough falling out, and he was a atheist for a little bit, and then someone tried to recruit him in the Satanist movement, and he went up to a certain elite level and realized that there, every single level of corruption and in government, everyone's involved in the satanic movement. And he was like, holy crap. He left it, and he started preaching about it. He started talking to people. He's like, hey, this is what's happening, and you need to realize that there are corrupt people that are controlling everybody in society to do their bidding, and there's just absolute ferocities and terrors that are happening in the whole entire world that the good people are allowing to put out. And what he says is that, honestly, the people that are allowing these actions to continue are the ones equally at fault, because we're not taking responsibility ourselves. I don't support any of that. You can't pay me enough money to hurt a person or a being, even make me squish a rat, and I won't. But it's like, there are people that are just enabling the whole entire population to do these horrible things, and all of us are just allowing it to happen. And so I'm trying to unlock people's minds and say, hey, we can stand up, and we can say, hey, we're not going to stand for this immorality. We're all good people. Like, every religion's really talking about the same shit. Everyone's teaching, as long as you're trying to love one another and be compassionate towards your neighbor, teach what Christ said. The most important rule was love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Nothing else. He didn't say go condemn all the bastards that are different from you. He said go love everybody. Go be a compassionate person to others. And if this whole entire business is a Ponzi scheme, all I want you to take away from this today is that just go love others. You can do it yourself. You don't need a piece of Orgonite to do this. You can do it yourself. You can start this change within yourself today. It doesn't take a piece of Orgonite, but a piece of Orgonite helps. There's a lot of scientific research that helps benefit the fact it's not just good for you and your emotional body. It's good for your animals. It's good for your plants. If you're a gardener, you can place them inside of your gardens, and it does amazing things. I'm partnered with an organization called Food Forest Abundance, and they create big permaculture sites, and you can basically grow your own food to be able to feed your whole entire family. I'll hook you up with some Orgonite, and it'll help totally boost that area and stuff.
That's so awesome. So when we get to Wilhelm Reich, he's in the United States. He sees that what the CIA is doing, absolutely horrific. He starts building these accumulators and stuff. Mm-hmm. And he's older now. He also has like a treatment center there, and I think you can even go there now. What like in that part of his life, what was going on?
So he had a compound where he was conducting a lot of research with a lot of people he trusted very deeply, and he was completely detached from regulation. He was doing everything himself because he had his run-ins with government authorities. Hitler absolutely hated him. Every person that was in government hated him because he's trying to dismantle the horrible stuff they're trying to put up. And he is researching the effects of cancer and of other diseases with orgone accumulators and seeing what he can do and helping people clear up this armor. And he's also trying to teach people orgonomy and the emotional healing behind all of it. And he was saying this armor is all that really matters. There's a couple of rare recordings of Wilhelm Reich, and one of them's talking about he's talking about is like he's trying to get people to understand how armor is present in the body, how to pull it out, and why that's the only thing that really matters, because that emotional blockage that's there isn't going to go away unless you put attention to it and you are willing to let it go. Also, if you buy a piece of Orgonite but don't do any personal work with yourself, it's going to do jack squat. You have to start doing the work yourself. You have to put the intention out, and it's an energy or intention amplifier. If you put the positive intentions out, it'll amplify those positive intentions. If you put negative energy out, I mean, I don't know if it could, and I don't think it's possible to amplify negative energies because of the positive energy that's transmuting it. If you put negative energy into it, it'll probably spit positive energy out back at you, but if you're not receiving it, you're not receiving it. So you always have to be open to it yourself. But Wilhelm Reich, he was he ended up going to the Death Valley in Arizona eventually, and this was right before he got imprisoned. And what he was doing is he took these orgone accumulators, but he also made these devices called cloudbusters. And this was working on the geoengineering field stuff. And he went to the Death Valley in Arizona and spent months there. He got multiple different types of orgone devices and cloudbusters, pointed them up at the sky, and he would watch the humidity raise on a daily level. And then he started seeing what he called UFOs in the sky above him. And when he saw the UFOs, he said that the humidity would damper and go way lower again. And he was basically fighting these UFOs in the sky and trying to raise the humidity when they were trying to shut it down. I don't have any claims to be what it was. My personal opinion is if they're not beings of light, they're probably just government either pieces and technology they've made and perverted. They could also be genetically engineering gray types beings that are just absolute human disaster that they've created. I'm not going to go into that, but that's just an opinion. But he was battling these.
We talk a lot about UFOs and stuff on the podcast. One of the things, and the Bledsoe do that too. One of the things that people don't realize is whether you're Christian or not, it doesn't matter. There is a spiritual warfare that's going on. Yeah. And there is, like, I follow a lot of Rudolf Steiner, and he talks about the negative entities, and you have, a collective conscious, but you have these negative entities, and they're trying to go against your free will. They're trying to, so that would make sense, whether it is the government and it's like UAPs that the government owns, or whether it was, actual UFOs from negative entities. They're going to try to shut down anything that can. We studied the law of one. It's like raw teachings, and they talk about in the law of one. They talk about it's like a channeled material from the 80s. I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but
I started listening to your podcast this morning, but then I didn't finish it.
yeah. But one of the things that they talk about is, the negative entities that are coming. This is what they do. They go against your free will. And they're trying to keep us from going into what they call fourth density. Like we're in third density now, and trying to keep us from, like you were saying in this Aquarius coming out.
And it also, you could think of it as the ascension from the 3-dimensional plane of the solar plexus chakra into the heart chakra, which is the loving energy that we're all going to be experiencing. Continue though.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at these negative entities, they don't want to have anything to do with that, because a lot is about control and allowing these governments to take control, to enslave us. And you'd mentioned that already before. So Wilhelm Reich, he's older, he's doing these. What happens to him towards the end of his life?
So they end up doing a televised. They end up going out there with television cameras. Reich actually obtained some radioactive material. I think it was uranium, and he placed it inside of the cloudbuster, and it enhanced the effects of it. And eventually, he was able to make it rain for the first time in 50 years in the Death Valley, and it'd been a complete dry desert that whole entire time before that, and it was like that. It just started raining, and then he had to leave. Something happened. The FDA got a hold of him and said, "Hey, you're not you're claiming to be healing stuff, people without FDA authority. You're not a doctor. You can't be doing this. You can't transport any of your pieces or devices past state lines." And unfortunately, one of his coworkers tried to sneak a piece of a cloudbuster or an orgone accumulator or something past the state lines, and they caught him. And they're like, "Okay, Reich, you have to go in. We're taking you to court." And what Reich does is he makes a giant defense. And what he doesn't defend himself. What he does is he says, "I'm going to do every single piece of possible evidence to prove that Orgone Energy works, and my devices have worked in a bunch of people." And that doesn't matter to a corrupt court. They threw him in contempt of court, and they threw him in prison, and he died 9 months later. But in all of his material, all of his books, like 9 tons of his books and material got burned inside of the Manhattan infernos or whatever it is. But yeah,
I think it was the FDA was the big one, the big push behind this. So, here's just another government agency, trying to squash the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Not the first time, but
yeah, not exactly. This is happening on a daily basis. I want to get into, we're wrapping up on the show here. We have about 15 more minutes. I want to get into EMFs, how it neutralizes the negative effects, specifically with your pieces. And I know you've talked a little bit about this, what's in the pieces, but what does it do? And maybe you could without using their names, use some real life examples. You did one already. With someone with the heart chakra and the healing of relationships.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've seen happen when somebody has a piece?
So, okay. Some things have been, there's another story that I'll tell, but specifically with EMFs, there are these negative frequencies, just as there are positive frequencies. Like you have the positive Orgone energy, and you also have negative, what people call EMFs, which I just consider it just DOR that's being pushed out into everywhere. That's just my opinion. But, you take this piece of Orgonite, take like a pyramid like this, place it next to your Wi-Fi router, it completely neutralizes all of the negative EMF machines. So you take a tri-field meter and place it next to a router, and you can see it shoots up, and then you place the Orgonite next to it, flatlines. Remove it, shoots up. And so you can see that the radiation that's coming out of the machine is neutralized by the positive Orgone energy. That's one of the many ways that you can prove that Orgone devices actually work. And so the way that, but every single time that people talk about this, a lot of people say, let's go out and bust the towers. There's a bunch of towers all around. If you put a pieces of Orgonite, it'll neutralize all the radiation. That's great. I'm super fan. I don't do any arson or any sort of don't break any laws at all. I'm not advocating for that, but I've always been a fan of raising your personal temple, increasing your frequency. So anything that were to come to you, it doesn't matter. You can step foot into a radioactive mess, but if you're a being of light and if you're completely free of all this negative energy, your terrain is too high of a frequency for any of it to attach to you. So it doesn't matter in the first place. So that's my personal opinion on it. But sorry. Was there a specific question I needed to answer?
I wanted to go into, I love that, the EMF side. Now I want to go into some personal stories you've seen? I know you haven't been
Okay.
doing your shop
Yeah.
for so long, but I mean, the heart chakra one was amazing.
Mhm.
What are some of the other things that you've seen with people
Okay.
with your work, your artistry?
So this is a story that, okay, the first ever rodent coil pyramid I made for somebody. There's this man who lives in Canada. He has a job of what's called a paralegal, and this paralegal is basically like a lawyer, except in Canada they had a messed up law or situation where basically the lawyer can sit inside of the court, but he's not allowed to represent his client. For some reason, they thought that was okay. And this guy specifically, he was like, I don't think that's okay, and I'm going to represent him anyway. The whole some national thing sued him, and it was a 7 year long process. And about 8-9 months ago at this point, he messaged me and he's like, hey, I want a moldavite pyramid with a rodent coil and a piece of Libyan desert glass, all very, very powerful stones. And I was like, yes, I want to build this for you. This is awesome. I also put a Vogel crystal inside of it, which is a 12-sided faceted double terminated stone, which is the most vibrationally powerful structure. That's a tangent. Anyways, took like 3 months to build it, get the rodent coil, and he was like, yeah, I'm going through all this stuff. It's like I'm being sued by the whole entire state of, or the whole government of Canada or whatever. And I'm going to have my court date soon. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's get this out to you. And it took me a lot longer than I expected to. Got it sent out to him. And that day, there's just the day of his court case, he went in there and he was expecting to start to fight for weeks and trying to like uphold his right. But it was an hour-long trial. The person who was the judge for him, he saw all the stuff that happened. He's like, okay, you are totally pardoned. They have to pay you back everything that they've caused you. All the legal fees are covered, everything, you're exempt for it. And he was able to try to change the law. In that 1 hour, that legal process was happening, which was 7 years coming. It took 7 years for it to happen. My pyramid was delivered to his house in that hour.
That's crazy. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, and like you said, the Vogel crystal, that's really cool. I mean, we could go down on a tangent with that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been looking at those, trying to figure them out and
Yeah.
which ones to get and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like what do you feel like when you're making these and then you're getting them out to people?
Yeah.
You know, the responses that you're getting back, is it mainly like a lot of trauma healing?
Yeah, man. Before I started doing Orgonite, I have had a bunch of personal trauma in the last year and a half, a bunch of family stuff. It's been quite rough on me. And I went through an insane level of emotional healing and started turning my life around and everything before Orgonite. And then I started going really deep into this theory of biofield tuning, which is basically you take the anatomy of the chakras in the body and you can wave a tuning fork around it and literally return blockages or the armor back into the center, and you can restore the energies. I got super deep into this research and I was like, oh, okay, this whole anatomy of the biofield is able to be transposed onto an orgone device. And you can say, I'm going to make a green pyramid with a specific piece inside of it, a specific shape to help match that vibration of the energy that you have to be receiving. And so it's a really like in-depth math. And so like if you say I'm dealing with okay, I had a buddy yesterday that he was my best friend growing up in elementary school, and I kind of lost touch with him in the last couple of years. And a few days ago, he messages me out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey man, I'd love to catch up sometime." And I'm like, "Yeah, for sure. What are you doing? What are you doing? Let's hang out." He's like, "Yeah, I actually just broke my leg and I'm off of a job for a little while, so I got free time whenever." I picked him up the next day. We ended up having the most deep conversation I've ever had in my life. I gave him like 4 or 5 different orgone devices, and it turns out that he's had a lot of trauma with his family and with his parents. He went through horrible, bad stuff, bad stuff. But he was going through a really deep spiritual healing journey in the last few weeks specifically. And then he has no idea I'm on this same path, and I've gone through the same exact traumas he's been through in his life recently. And we sit down, have a conversation. It's like the most healing thing that we both experienced. It was incredible. And it was amazing. And like, I gave him, he broke his leg, and I gave him a specific piece that would match the vibratory structure of where his leg was. I'm not saying I'm going to heal his leg. I'm not a doctor, once again, for the third time. However, I matched the chakra region color where the leg was, and I gave him a pyramid. I said, put this under your bed right where your leg is. I'm not saying I'm going to heal this, and I don't want to get in trouble for saying this at all. But yeah, it's just going to increase the orgone or the energy or the frequency around the area. So it's creating like an aura of positive energy bubble.
Yeah, I love that. What are some of the things, just I have just a couple more questions, we'll be done. What are some of the things that you feel like your vision for this? Like, I know you're working and you're this artist and you have this shop. What are you hoping to, how are you hoping to help humanity?
So I hope to establish a worldwide organization where we're helping free the forest, free the environment, free the pollution around the whole entire area of our world. I've thought about starting movements. I want to start sending like care packages, or I call it the Teach a Man to Fish bundle. And I can give you a bunch of different stuff, and I can start saying, hey, you start making your own Orgonite. Let's get this a movement that's starting everywhere. And I want to like ship a bunch of stuff to Africa and a bunch of third world countries, help teach people how to cheaply make really good positive pieces, and you can start having whole worldwide healing. And you combine this. I would love to work more with food forest abundance as well, to create free food and supply for everybody in the whole entire world. You have the right technologies where we can create a worldwide hunger like nobody could starve. Everybody could have enough food if we did it the right way. And if we stop monocropping and having all the businesses and giant companies buy up our farmland, we could start actually reincorporating, putting a bunch of Orgonite pieces in all of the screwed up environment and start rehealing that area. The energy of the earth will always heal itself. We can help it if we start coming back into alignment with the energy of that earth. We can start healing it ourselves. We have to start healing ourselves as well. I'd love to start teaching people all about the biofield tuning hypothesis and how everything physically in your body has an emotional correlation. Every single thing that goes on in your body, inside of your soul, every single trauma you experience, it expresses itself. It always expresses itself. And if you don't let go of that, and if you don't release it, if you don't grow, you're not going to be operating at your best potential. And there are so many people that have been through so much trauma. The last 4 years have been a trauma factory for the human population. And we all have the opportunity to grow from all of this shit that's been thrown at us. We just have to realize we can. We just have to stop throwing bombs at our neighbors, and we have to stop killing innocent children, and we have to stop saying, whoever the person is that's sitting in the chair that's like, hey, I want to kill everybody and I don't give a fuck. Just say no. Say no. Every single person has the opportunity to say that. And I'm saying no by helping everybody and trying to spread the word and giving people devices to where they can increase their own personal frequency or either their electrical potential that's able to literally help heal them emotionally. I can't say physically, but physical things have an emotional connection always. So yeah.
No, I love that, Isaac. And one of the things that people need to realize that this is the devices that you create. It's a technology,
Yeah,
just
for sure.
like the internet changed humanity. AI is changing humanity. We can argue back and forth, if it's good or bad or whatever. This is a positive technology that everyone can have and use.
Yeah.
And like you said, they can create themselves or they can purchase from you, Yeah. And this is something that if every household had these Orgonite pyramids in them, what would happen to the world,
It would be a utopia. In the sense of, there are so many organizations that are trying to steal either our money or our health or our life force or our energy. I love the phrase, the white coat takes you into the world and steals your energy, and the black coat takes you out of the world and steals your energy. It's just an energy harvesting farm. If we detach from that, like this is a tangent, but I don't want to be buried in a casket. I want to be buried. I want to be just thrown in the back of the forest and I want animals to eat me, and I want to decompose and become part of the earth again. Because that's what we're all meant to do. And we're all in this infinite cycle of restructuring into nature, and we're all supposed to be supporting nature and we are stewards of creation. God literally sent us to this planet to be stewards of his creation. or not his, but it could be his. I don't know, whatever God is, whatever you think God is. We're stewards of all life and creation. We're supposed to love everything. We're supposed to love the fly that's on your wall. We're supposed to love every single person that crosses paths with us. Every homeless person that you see, maybe you don't have to give them $10, but you can show them some fucking love. You can say, I'm sorry. Just like in the Bible, I don't have money for you, but hey, get up and walk. Let's teach you to be positive and loving to others. When you start healing from the emotional imbalances inside of yourself, you will heal the world.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hand out the pucks to homeless people.
I'd love that. If anybody wants to, on this note, this is just me and you right now sitting down, having a conversation, figuring things out. If anybody wants to just buy a bulk order from me and start giving it away to homeless people or to somebody, if anybody has that love in their heart, I will give you a steep discount and let's make this happen. Let's start a fucking movement.
Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking on that, let's see your website again and your Instagram.
Yeah. Instagram is Orgone, the state, OREGON .ite. And the website is www.orgon-ite.com. Yeah. And in the headline, I want to bring this up. So the first thing that pops up is it says, "Welcome to Orgonite. The etheric war is far from over. Everybody who, something along the lines of everybody needs to start showing love, and that's how we're going to change the world." On that note, there's the inventor of Orgonite, Don Croft. Don and Carol were a married couple who had an incredibly amazing Orgonite gifting movement, and they did a lot of good work. And their website got shut down after they passed away. And what it says is everybody should go to this website, www.worldwithoutparasites.com. There's a message that says the etheric war is over. As of December 2023, all of the original Croft Orgonite pieces are being bricked and deactivated. Thank you to all of the useful idiots who helped this process. And it lists a bunch of people who helped with the Orgonite gifting process. Full disclosure will occur someday. And that's what the end message is. And so my message is the etheric war is not over. There's always a battle for love, and every single person that lives here on this planet, which is everybody who's going to be listening to this, whoever you are part of this war. And your way that you help is stop supporting everybody who's trying to suck your energy out.
I love that. Thank you, Isaac. I appreciate you being on Hard Densely Living podcast. We'll have all this in the show notes and encourage people to go to your website and your Instagram. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Jason.
Okay, cool. I'm going to stop it, and then we'll just have a quick little conversation before you go.
Awesome.